great uncle. His name is Jasper Brooks. And he had a nickname, Barnacles. Jasper Barnacle Brooks. And I always wondered, how did you come by the nickname Barnacle? One day, I'm down at the Monterey Bay Aquarium doing a little research in front of the seahorse exhibit. The seahorse I happen to be looking at is staring at me with one eye. And he says to me, "I know you. I know your DNA. I know your great uncle." "You do?" Unfolds the story, how he is the 22nd descendant of King Bonecrusher, the greatest seahorse that ever lived. King Bonecrusher was as large as a hippopotamus. Now, if you know anything about the digestive tracts of seahorses, they must eat constantly because there is no digestive tract. They also have no teeth, so everything they take in gets crushed. King Bonecrusher wanted a throne befitting his majesty. And he saw this new kelp forest that had grown, and there inside of its midst was a beautiful coral throne. And he took up residence in it. Eventually, King Bonecrusher discovered he had a little problem. There were huge piles of bones, and the dust covered his throne, and he wasn't very happy about this. So he went in search of a solution. Up on the top of this kelp forest was Her Majesty's naval ship sailing over. And there on the deck was Jasper Brooks, a mere cabin boy at the time, swabbing the deck dutifully. Well, King Bonecrusher captured Jasper and made him his slave and handed him a spiny pufferfish. And this was his brush to swab clean the coral throne. As you can imagine, Jasper's hands and knuckles grew hardened and crusty, just like barnacles. King Bonecrusher's appetite, which was massive, took quite a toll on the neighboring sea families. And word came to the greatest sage that ever lived. And she spoke a word. She knew that if she did not, it was likely that the families of the sea would not live because King Bonecrusher was brooding in his pouch, about to give birth to a Mongo-sized race. When the word came to King Bonecrusher and encapsulated him, he began to shrink and cave in on himself until he was no more than the size of seahorses that we know today. Jasper, seeing that he was no longer in fear of his life, climbed his way to freedom up the sea forest kelp. And there comes Her Majesty's naval ship sailing by. They didn't see him, but there was barnacles encrusted on the hull of the ship, and he grabbed onto one because it was no effort for him. His hands were hard as rocks. And it carried him all the way. As he's passing the Americas, he swam to shore and became a farmer. Now here's the question I had always wanted to ask my Uncle Jasper. How did you survive the 1800s in farming in Kentucky? The seahorse related this to me. every springtime planting, Jasper would take out a little box of the crushed bones he had saved of King Bonecrusher and blew them out on his fields of crops. And they were the first crops to go to market because they were the biggest. And this is how the Brooks family survived.